one of the great things about a home classroom is that coffee pot and the refrigerator are right there. One of the worst things about a home classroom is coffee pot and the refrigerator are right there. So how is everyone?
Great, great, and you?
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm getting
Hey,
my,
Dr. Eby?
yeah. Oh, George, I feel so terrible. So this is the one class I didn't cite that you had been the one that gave me the comic.
Oh, that's good.
And
I
I
just-
feel badly. So, because I love the comic.
Reminded me of what you'd posted with the dinosaur before with the turtles.
I love little tiny T-Rex arm jokes. I think those are the best.
Hey, I saw this story this morning about I think they called it a geomagnetic disruption. It caused all kinds of climate change like 40-something thousand years ago. And they found this tree in New Zealand that they've been studying, I guess, and it gives evidence of what may have happened.
I would have to look at that because geomagnetic disruptions are expected. As we'll learn about right after the midterm, the sun is a violent, angry star, and it's constantly belching out things like what the military would call an electromagnetic pulse.
Okay.
Like, I mean, it's constantly doing that. So it can have really bad solar storms. There was one back in the 1800s that fried all the they were using telegraphs back then, and it just cooked all of them. And if we had the same solar storm now, it would be like, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Escape from LA, but it would be exactly like the end of Escape from LA, where it's like, welcome down here with the rest of us, because there's no technology. Like, it's all cooked.
It said this just triggered this enormous climate change, and it like wiped out mammals in Australia, and because of ultraviolet rays, people retreated into caves. And
So I would love to read that, because can you send that to me? I didn't see that this morning.
It was the New York Times.
Oh, nice. That's one of my faves, so I will definitely read it.
It was a headline right online in the New York Times. So.
Oh, I like that we have a subscription at the college. I do believe in reading a variety of different news sources. I know that New York Times can have one worldview. And so I like to make sure that I am getting a diversity of news. Now,
I think it's right there in today's edition.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you said it now, so I'm curious. So Kirsten brings up, we should start talking about practical things in this class. I'm going to walk you through some stuff, including midterm. So first of all, there is no midterm exam. There's one very small final. It's worth about 2.5 quizzes, and it's at the very end during finals week, and it'll be relatively short and based on the previous quizzes. And when I mean base, questions will be literally taken from quizzes. So it's more like, did you retain some stuff from this class, sort of a thing, than like something that should be super high stress, because it's only 100 points. We don't have a midterm. I don't have big tests anymore in my classes because I found it just causes too much stress, and with the online overwhelming amounts of grading for me, because like grading something really long takes a long time, where it's like looking at one question at each student every week. Also, I wasn't getting an idea of like, are people confused until I gave the test? And then like, I'd see the answers to the test and I'm like, wow, I really should have backed up the trolley truck and gone over some of that stuff. But I didn't know because I didn't have any feedback. So let's go over some of that practical stuff. Go over to Blackboard Learn. Go over here and talk about some changes that we have in our, I'm going to turn off edit mode so it looks a little bit more like your screen. I know I could also do student preview, but this is close enough and it's really fast. And if I do have to change something, it's really easy to come out of. So here we are landing on, this is the announcement. Let's go over here to course information first because stuff's about to get weird. So flexibility in finding recorded lectures. This has been updated. YouTube channel with my lectures from February on, you click here. This is the directions for seeing things that are recorded from the Collaborate. Not all the lectures are up yet. There were tons of errors, but this week is going up no problem. And then it's just gonna be a matter of me like cleaning out. I'm just gonna be going backwards week to week, making sure I have one of each, you know, make sure I have the lectures for each class for that week, get that week out of the way, and just kind of move backwards in time. So, so every time I upload a current video, I try to upload a couple older videos because it's a little overwhelming, but from here on out, you should have it updated regularly. How is this organized? Each playlist, each class has a playlist. Like for example, here's your playlist, GEO 102, spring, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, spring 2021. Right now, it just has the lecture from last Wednesday because that's when I got everything straightened up. So I will have the previous lectures uploaded gradually. Once again, I'm working backwards in time. So make sure I have all my lectures from the Friday before this week, and then all the lectures from the Thursday and all that kind of stuff. William, seeing your name in the thingy, I have to email you, and I've been meaning to email you back. I had to move and a lot of stuff got out of control. So I will email you. That is my fault, not yours. I'm still very interested in the project. We need to do a little update. There we go. So, and I got your message about which honors options you did. It's in my mind. It just, this week was very overwhelming with the move and everything. So here we have the different channels for the different classes. Pretty straightforward. Let's go back over here. Once again, this is under flexibility in finding re-recorded lectures, and I put updated so you know that this is not the same link it was before. Going down, let's take a look at schedule. So this is the schedule of all our stuff here, course schedule. And here we have the college academic calendar. Giving you a warning, this week we had Monday off, next week we'll have Tuesday off. So this class will meet on Monday, but you don't have classes on Tuesday, barring the event of like a superstorm, which looks like it's a possibility. Thank you, William. For questions like Kirsten's midterm, can we talk about that? Midterm, I'm referring to just the date. So midterm semester grades are due March 17th. So right after that time period, we'll be moving into astronomy. If you want to know our schedule, this is our schedule. I have it under lecture notes right here. I think I also have it under online workbooks. No, I do not. I do not. But if you click on lecture notes, this is everything about lecture notes and what I intend to be lecturing. Now, as you can see, we're just wrapping up 5. We didn't even hit 6 and 7. And I'm going to be honest, we're going to go through 6 and 7 really, really wicked fast. We're just going to go like the greatest hits of volcanism. Like there's 3 types of volcanoes. Keep moving, and then like very basics on faults. Faults can move different ways and it's caused by stress. Okay, let's keep moving because we really need to get started on the next chapter's worth of stuff where we start working on. So we're moving into meteorology, which is what this stuff is here. And then right around week, just after week 8, we're going to start hitting the astronomy units, which are basically 8, 19, 20, 21, well, 21, 22, 23, 24, those chapters. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So So yeah, that's what I mean by right after midterms. I'm referring to the date, not this class is a test. There's a quiz every week in this class. As you can see, if you click on weekly essay quizzes, every week there is a quiz on Wednesday. And that's just me being like, big tests are stressful. You forget it by the time you get there. They're stressful for me to grade. I don't know if you understand things until week 7, and that's not useful. So I broke up all the big tests and made them teeny, tiny tests that we take every single week. So, because it's just easier for everybody. So any questions, Kirsten, anyone about any of this stuff? Gotta get better at sitting upright. Gotta get back into my yoga. I was doing yoga quite well for a few weeks. Good, I like the way you do things. Thank you, Kirsten. So one of my best friends in the universe is a student at JCC, and I get to listen to her bitch about the other professors a lot, and that teaches me how not to do things. So, and I can hear her giggling in the background. So, so thank you. I'm glad that it works for you, Kirsten, because it's based on one student's very intense opinions about what's wrong with classes. So very good, all good. Thank you, Lynn. All right. So let's go ahead. Oh, and just a reminder, under the lecture notes, it's not only the outlines, it's also like we're in week 4, you don't have it, but you can click notes to download. I'll make that link a lot bigger because quite a few students emailed me and said they couldn't find the link. And I think that's just because it kind of like is camouflage, like it's small and not clear, as opposed to like being big and thick and look here kind of a thing. So let's go ahead. I'm going to stop screen share if there's no other questions. And grab my magical colored pencils. Okay. So you are not astronomy. I'm really hoping that the college president takes my request seriously to let me just stay at JCC, because going and coming and grabbing my stuff and leaving is complicated. Okay, so what have we been talking about? What has been my son has that same mistake, Darth Tater. Darth Tater in regular class is like a mascot of my classes. So like, I really felt that he was absolutely necessary for my like at-home classroom, because he gives good spiritual. I also have a bobblehead Boba up there. I also have a Samus, who is my hero. She's awesome. So plate boundaries. Thank you, Jesse, for getting us back on track. So we've been talking about plate boundaries. What are the plate boundary types that we ended with? What have we been focusing on? Oceanic continental convergence. Excellent. So we've been working on different kinds of, we started with divergent plate boundaries. Ooh. It helps to switch cameras. Okay. So we started with divergent plate boundaries, okay, which we talked a little bit about. We don't go super in depth in divergent. We just mostly focus on their role in forming mid-ocean ridges, because that's going to become really important for understanding later, if you decide to take other classes, about why the oceanic crust is made out of basalt. So we started talking about convergent plate boundaries, and there's a diversity. So this is the generalized one, right? And each of the subtypes makes slightly different features. So we talked about an oceanic, and how some of the things we see with an oceanic include things like a trench and a volcanic island arc, which we see right here. Can someone give an example of a volcanic island arc?
Hawaii.
Ooh, good thought, good thought. The Aleutians. So Kirsten and Jesse and George have it. So the Aleutian Islands. Also, we talked about the Lesser Antilles, which is an island arc in the Caribbean. But yeah, we also see the Aleutian Islands, and that was our big example here. So we sketched it out. Remember, this trench represents basically the boundary between the different plates. And this Pacific plate is sliding underneath the North American plate, and that's forming volcanoes along the Aleutian Islands. We talked about a continental oceanic convergence, or oceanic continental, whichever way you phrase these, whichever direction, that's okay. So once again, in an oceanic continental convergence, some of the features, we see that trench right there. We see a volcano, and we see big high mountain ranges, okay? So if we've covered oceanic and oceanic continental, and we'll get into Hawaii a little bit when we talk about volcanoes. Hawaii is actually formed from a hot spot. What do you think our next convergent plate boundary is? If we've done oceanic, and oceanic, continental. Excellent, Jesse. You are absolutely correct. So oceanic, continental to continental are a little bit different. I really wish they would let me just stay at the college and keep my pens there, and it would be amazing, but that's not to be. Hang on a second. There we go. There's my favorite pen. By the way, if you're ever looking for like a really amazing pen, Papermate Jellies. They're wicked good. So I'm going to use a whole new page because it just helps to have the extra space. Let's talk about our continental convergence. Oops, somebody has their mic on. Somebody has a microphone. So I'm going to make a big lumpy continent over here. I'm going to put another lumpy, big, thick continent here. I'm going to have this sliding like this. Like this. Okay. What's this top layer called? What should I label this? Somebody's got their mic on. Dakota. I'll just mute you. There we go. So I'm going to stop mentioning it from here on out. If you don't take the hint, I will just mute you. Because I don't know if you got up and went to the bathroom, and it's not my business. Okay. So what should I label these guys? No worries, Dakota. That's the thing. I also didn't want to embarrass you. You were probably distracted. Either walk by the video, even if it's distracted by me. So what should I label these guys? Lithosphere. Excellent, Jesse. Lithosphere. And this is continental lithosphere. Okay, what should I label this layer down here? Asthenosphere. Excellent, Lynn. Excellent, Kirsten. Asthenosphere. Awesome. What does brown mean? What do I have? What do I mean by when I color something brown? What does that mean? Crust. Excellent, Kirsten. Excellent, George. Okay. So hang on just a sec. Home. Awesome. Sorry, I had to put you on mute for a second there, all. So we have this, and then we have the green, and the green represents what part of the earth? What is the green? Mantle. Excellent. Excellent. So just looking at this diagram, what's one feature that you notice what's one feature that you notice right off the bat? Mountains. Excellent, Jesse. So big mountains. The largest mountains in the world are from this continental convergence. So the Adirondacks are beautiful, but they don't form, they're not, huge like this, okay? This is like Alps, Himalayas, those sorts of mountains are formed from this continental convergence. So basically what's going on is that mountains are basically crust wrinkles. A good way to think of these kinds of big mountains is it's just basically the two of them are moving together, slamming together, and that's forming wrinkles in the crust. Now, what do we also see that we see at every plate boundary type? Every plate boundary has what? Earthquakes. Excellent. So that's another feature that we see. I just want to see how I notated it on your page over here. So let's talk about places we find continental convergence. So what's one place we find continental to continental convergence? Any guesses? Nepal. Excellent, Jesse. So we see it in the entire Himalayan region. Himalayas. What's another one I mentioned? It's another massive mountain chain we find in Europe.
The Rocky Mountains.
Alps. Excellent. So Rocky Mountains are also, they're actually a part of a Cordillera and they're ancient. So we're going to leave the Rocky Mountains off of this for a moment because it is related to this, but it's not quite the same. Ooh, I see the suggestion, the Andes. What did we learn the Andes actually were? We already talked about the Andes. Why? Because they're what kind of mountain range? What kind of plate? Oceanic continental. Excellent, George. You got it. So Andes are another good guess because they're huge mountains. They're definitely huge mountains. But as George pointed out, they're a continental oceanic convergence, not a continental convergence. And actually, Himalayas and Alps are actually part of the same system. There's a huge belt of mountains that runs all the way through Europe, all the way into basically Southwest Asia, that is just one long mountain belt, one long what we call in geology orogeny. And that's part, the Alps and the Himalayas are both part of that same massive, massive system. So let's go ahead and draw India. So those of you who are used to me being absolutely terrible at drawing, India, this down here is Goa. Okay. And we have this Indian plate. What have I been using for plates? Let's use blue for plates. So the Indian plate, this is a vast simplification of the Indian plate. Goes like this. So we have, this is the Indian plate. Okay, out here we have the Indian Ocean is surrounding India. That makes sense. And we have this Indian plate, and this Indian plate is moving in basically this direction. It's slamming into the larger plate and continent of Eurasia. Okay, which is basically the big system. Most countries no longer refer to Europe and Asia. They refer to it because geologically it is one continent. It's one big system called Eurasia. Geopolitically, it's two separate things, and it's been struggling to stay two separate things. Like if you're like interested in the geopolitics, read up about the Cold War. So we have India slamming into Eurasia over here. India is on a separate plate, and that forms this massive, massive mountain region here of the Himalayas. Ooh. So does that make sense? I'm going to put this all in a blue box because this is all example. And just as a heads up, this over here is a map view, not a side view. Ah, that's not my favorite pen. Here's my favorite pen. So we're looking down like we would on Google Maps rather than from the side. Where is the convergent plate boundary here? Where do you know there is a convergent plate boundary? Describe where you see it underneath. Where is the plate boundary?
right where you were coloring. plate
Right where I
boundaries.
was coloring. What line is it? What color is the line?
No, blue,
Blue, excellent. Who am I talking to?
Jesse.
Jesse, thank you. So this whole line in here is our convergent plate boundary. Now there's other convergent plate boundaries around the Indian plate, okay? So there's a convergent plate, actually a convergent plate boundary system right down here, which forms a lot of islands. But this is the convergent plate boundary that's forming the Himalayas. So, any questions about any of this? If not, let's go ahead and summarize our information that we have accrued. I just want to make sure, so I'm going to use a whole page for this because I don't want to run out of space, although I will need some kind of straight edge. Ooh. I will use the edge of these sparklers as my straight edge. I've got to get some rulers for at home. Oh, we didn't cover transform. Let's quick cover transform, and then we will do our review of plate tectonic features. So I think I probably have enough space over here. No, I don't have enough space over there. Let me go ahead and use this whole page then. Transform plate boundaries, also called transform fault boundaries. So in transform fault boundaries, the motion is like this. Okay, so if you look at the cross section is hella boring because we have our layer of our lithosphere. Our asthenosphere. Add in a little crust, happy little crust. Add in a little mantle, happy little mantle. And then the transform plate boundary is just like, zoop, like it's literally a crack. This is our transform. It's super boring when looking from the cut side of it because it's literally just a crack, okay? It's basically the butt crack of Earth, okay? So it's basically a crack where sliding occurs. And important features of a transform include earthquakes and no volcanoes. So for example, we don't usually see volcanoes with a continental convergence, but there are some. I mean, they're occasional. It's not like oceanic continental or oceanic where there's just lots of them. But there's occasionally a volcano. We almost always see volcanoes, or we always see volcanoes with divergent plate boundaries. That's one of the hallmarks of it. But the unique thing about transform fault boundaries is that there's absolutely no volcanoes whatsoever. There's no lithosphere going up or going down, and therefore, or there's no asthenosphere coming up and there's no lithosphere going down. So there's no melting going on. There's no rapid changes of pressure. There's no new materials exposed to high temperature, all those sorts of conditions where we would expect melting. So since we have no melting, we have no volcanoes. So transform plate boundaries are common near other types of boundaries. And they often found where multiple plate boundaries meet. But they can also occur on their own. Oh, no trench. Yeah, Jesse, no trench. There's no trench. They're very boring in a sense. They're exciting because they have a lot of earthquakes. That's the only excitement there, but they get a lot of earthquakes because there's just constant grinding. So not big earthquakes, huge earthquakes occur at convergent plate boundaries. But transform plate boundaries just have just buttloads of earthquakes. They even call them, I love this term, near transforms we can get what's called earthquake swarms, which there's so many earthquakes so rapidly that it's basically like bees swarming. So earthquake swarm. But can also occur alone. So one example, of where we find transform with other plate boundaries is a mid-ocean ridge. So this is going to be a map view. In other words, we're looking down. What we'll see is a long, possibly snaking, whoop, possibly like snaking divergent plate boundary. And that will be crosshatched. Why is my pen not unpinning? There we go. And that will be crosshatched with transform plate boundaries. So, so this system right here, this is really, really normal for a mid-ocean ridge system, okay? Where we have the divergent, this is our mid-ocean ridge system. Okay, and as that moves apart, it's going to cause uneven pulling. And that uneven pulling basically causes like little rips all up and down the plate boundary. And that those little rips are basically the transformed plate boundary. So another example of where it can occur, an example of it occurring alone, however, is the San Andreas fault system. And in that system, we have the Pacific plate slides past the North American plate. So transform are cool because they can be loners, like they hang out perfectly fine by themselves on the Andreas fault system, or they can be part of a large community of plate boundaries. They're equally comfortable in both situations, like we all should be. We all strive to be. Would the new Madrid fault be considered a transform? My understanding, and this is embarrassing because I'm from Chicago, so I lived in the new major seismic zone. But I do believe that is a divergent system, a failed rift system. So, so running up basically through what we would consider the Midwest, there is, the Earth is trying to do what it's doing in North Africa, or in the African Rift Valley system, or in portions of the Western United States where we see fault block mountains. And it appears that there was tension, or there still is even tension in the North American continent, and that pulling apart is causing basically a minor tear to open up along the center of the United States, and that's the new major seismic zone. So good question, Jesse. I will have to actually look that up because I probably should know that. So I'm glad you asked that question. So let's take a look at, now that we have our transform, now let's do our summary, okay? Our summary table. So let's do review of plate tectonic features. And the features we're going to look at include, let's turn this on the angle, so this will be nicely written. Island arcs. Actually, one may make a line here. Okay, yay, it's a relatively straight line. Continental arc. Mountain belt. Mid ocean ridges. Trenches. Earthquakes. Okay. And then over here, we will do divergent Yes, I actually measure out my notes. I want to convergent and then transform. But I have a piece of mail I could use that would be even better. Ooh. Fill in the blank puzzle. There we go. I don't even know what this is an advertisement for. Okay, so that's our grid system. Let's talk about each one of these. So island arcs, based on the diagrams and what we discussed so far, do island arcs occur at divergent boundaries? Where do we find them? No. What about convergent? Do we find island arcs at convergent plate boundaries? Yes, excellent. What kind of convergent plate boundaries? What kind of convergent plate boundaries will we find in island arc? You know this. Oceanic, oceanic. Thank you, Kirsten. So we have yes at an oceanic only. So we only find that at an oceanic. What about transform? Do we see island arcs? No, you are on fire, Kirsten. Thank you, Shannon. Excellent. So continental arcs, where do we find those? Where do we find continental arcs? Kirsten's been brave. Anybody else as brave as Kirsten? Continental, okay, continental what? Oceanic continental, excellent. So no to divergent, no to transform, yes. At a convergent, at oceanic continental or continental oceanic only. You can say it both ways. Just know that there's an ocean and a continent. Mountain belts. Where do we find mountain belts? What's one plate boundary where we definitely find mountain belts? Come on, be bold. Any kind of convergent. Excellent, Jesse. So yes, all convergent. Now we don't find them usually at transform. No, or at least transform don't cause them. So they don't cause mountains, but might be near them. And why is that? That's because transform plate boundaries are very social plate boundaries. They like to hang out with other plate boundary types. They're not the cause of the mountains, okay? So like, it's like somebody comes, not everyone that goes to the birthday party is the birthday girl, right? So same idea here, transform, they might show up in mountains, but they didn't build the mountains. Divergent, we didn't talk about this much, so I'm just going to answer this for you. So we can see that yes, at a continental rift, which is basically a bouncing baby divergent plate boundary. So when a divergent plate boundary starts, it starts as a continental rift. It very quickly becomes the system that we looked at and we drew, but it starts at a continental rift. It can make small, low mountains. Called fault block mountains. So fault block mountains are basically as the two plates pull apart, basically like stretching the lithosphere, and that causes little tears in the lithosphere. You actually end with huge blocks of rock slumping over and making like basically like little ridges. And if you've been out to the Western United States, like the Utah area, and you've seen my mic went muffled. Can you hear me now? Thank you so much, Jesse. Can you hear me now? Better, yes. Okay, so yeah, I need another life cam, or I need to bring my life cam home every time because that one has still a directional mic, but not as directional because I have to kind of like stay right here for you to hear me. Where was I? What the hell was I talking about? Damn it. Utah. Gosh, you are just amazing, Kirsten. You're paying attention to me better than I am. So yeah, Utah. If you've ever been out to Utah on the Wasatch Front, that's a good example of fault block mountains. They're beautiful, like the Adirondacks are beautiful, but like the Adirondacks, they're not that big. They're really fun to climb, like especially as a novice climber, or like I am a mountain climber, but I'm not like super hella serious, the same way that I'm a runner, but I'm not super hella serious. I just do it for fun. Mid-ocean ridges. Where do we see mid-ocean ridges? Where are mid-ocean ridges? Which plate boundary type? Divergent, excellent. So we're going to say yes here, and then no, and then no. Thank you, Jesse. You are also someone who's paying attention to me better than I am paying attention to me. Where do we see trenches?
I have a question.
I might have an answer. Can I ask who I'm speaking to?
Kirsten.
Kirsten. Hi, Kirsten. What can I help you with?
So we just drew the transform. Maybe I'm really wrong, so I feel kind of dumb asking, but we just drew the transform plate with at the mid-ocean ridge, so that wouldn't count.
No. Great question, Kirsten. It's like the mountains thing. So it can be near. This is because transformed plate boundaries are super social. They're just love hanging out with other plate boundary types. They're like, oh, I want to get close to you. I want to be next to you. So the transform can be near a mid-ocean ridge, but didn't cause it. So transform don't cause mountains. Transforms don't cause mid-ocean ridges. Divergent cause mid-ocean ridges. Convergent cause mountains. They're the ones that crash the party. Yes! We've got the party. I'm going to draw a little party hat. That's my little party hat for transform. And like explosion of party favors. I want to take some cartooning classes. So yeah, it's just that transform are always trying to get in on the party. So they're not the ones that are causing the mountain belts. They're not causing the mid-ocean ridges, right? They didn't put together the buffet. They just showed up and ate it, you know, like, so that's how transform rolls. Awesome. So trenches, where are we going to find trenches? Sounds like my Uncle Bob. Bob's your uncle, right? So convergent, excellent. Which kind of convergent? Excellent, Lynn, excellent, Shannon. 2 of the 3 make trenches. Oceanic, continental, and what's the other one that makes it? We're going to say yes. Oceanic, continental, and oceanic. Excellent, Lynn, excellent, Shannon. Trenches are an ocean feature. So you're only going to find it where you have ocean lithospheres subducting. Now, we don't find trenches at divergent. This is a common misconception. And I think I asked a student at one point, I'm like, actually I asked my 110 class, I think, why does everyone get this screwed up? And they said that it was because you picture making a hole And because you're making a hole, like as they're spreading apart, you should expect to see a trench. So that asthenosphere, there's no hole there. The asthenosphere is constantly rising up to fill that gap. So there's no hole because there's always something trying to flow in. And then we're going to say transform is no. Although once again, because transforms like to party, they might show up near a trench, but they didn't cause the trench. So we're going to hold off because we're heading into, and this will be a nice segue into our next section on Monday on earthquakes. We're going to pause here. Don't go yet. If you're here, I am going to quick take attendance, not to like wiggle my finger at anybody, but just to see who's showing up and to double check on people who aren't here. So I see Dakota. Oh, this is the wrong attendance sheet. The attendance sheet I need is right here. So just hold on a half a second. Even if you have to log into another class that's copacetic, I am just 219. Dakota is here. Dominique is here. George is here. Haley is here. Jesse is here. Once again, this isn't like me wagging my finger at you. I'm just going to check to make sure if folks are okay and like, are you not showing up? Lucky is here. Lynn is here. Megan is here. Rachel, Randy, Sam, Shannon, William, the student moved classes. And is Rose here? Rose is here. And looks like, is Christopher, Colin, Dakota Bailey, are you here? Any of you? If you can throw your name up in the chat, that would be great. Because I don't see you on the list. I guess not. Excellent. Okay. So I hope I'm going to stop the recording. I want you all